Okay, so this is our presentation on necrotizing fasciitis. So before we dive in, let's go over some interesting facts that I was able to find about necrotizing fasciitis, the flesh-eating disease. So necrotizing fasciitis kills the body's soft tissue, so the skin, muscles, and fat. 1 in 4 people that get necrotizing fasciitis die from it, so it's a very serious, deadly disease. In the United States, more cases are, more males get more cases than females. There are 500 to 1,000 cases per year, so that's a really big range. And statistically, 1 in 453,333 will contract necrotizing fasciitis a year. So just to give everyone an idea of how progressive necrotizing fasciitis can be, I found these 2 pictures. So necrotizing fasciitis on average spreads 3 centimeters of tissue per hour. So you can see that it was below the knee and now it's spreading up the leg. So just a little history of the disease. In 1871, Joseph Jones, who was a Confederate Army surgeon during the Civil War, first described the disease. In 1918, the disease was identified as a bacterial infection by U.S. surgeon Frank L. Melanie. And then in 1952, the condition was named by Dr. B. Wilson. So the etiology of the disease. There are several types of bacteria that can cause necrotizing fasciitis. So these are kind of the main ones that I found. So Streptococcus pyogenes, Staphylococcus aureus, Klebsiella, Clostridium, Escherichia coli, bacteroides, Pseudomonas, and Prevotella. So the most common one that we're going to focus on is group A, Streptococcus pyogenes. So Streptococcus pyogenes is a gram-positive bacteria. The shape of the bacteria is coccus, so they're round. It has a strepto arrangement, so it's arranged in chains. It has a capsule and M proteins. The bacteria is enveloped, and it does produce toxins. So the bacteria enters the fascia. It produces endotoxins. So the endotoxins are released as the bacteria die and break apart. And it also releases exotoxins. So those are released by the bacteria as waste. So these toxins restrict the blood supply, causing the death of the soft tissue cells. So this is really what causes the disease, is these toxins. And these toxins can also cause streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, which accelerates the speed and deadliness of the infection. So S. pyogenes are facultative anaerobes, so they can survive with and without oxygen, although the bacterium still does better when it's in an anaerobic condition. It's non-motile, so it does not have flagella, and it does not produce spores. And so the last thing that I wanted to say about the etiology is that one more quality that identifies Streptococcus pyogenes, specifically what tells this disease, tells the difference between this disease and Staphylococci aureus, is that Streptococcus pyogenes is a catalyst negative disease, or bacteria, and Staphylococci aureus is a catalyst positive. So that's how you're able to tell the difference between those two.
Streptococcus pyogenes, the bacteria that's most commonly responsible for necrotizing fasciitis, is capable of causing many different infections and diseases. It's most popularly known for causing pharyngitis, but it can also result in tonsillitis, scarlet fever, and rheumatic fever as well. The primary reservoirs for it are human noses, throats, and the skin. Many people are actually carriers of Streptococcus pyogenes bacteria, but they just lack symptoms. So while illnesses like pharyngitis are transmitted via direct or indirect contact of respiratory secretions, necrotizing fasciitis has a different mode of transmission. It is most commonly transmitted through contact of the bacteria with external breaks in the skin. So external breaks in the skin can include cuts, scrapes, burns, insect bites, puncture wounds, or surgical wounds. Less commonly, it's possible for necrotizing fasciitis to occur as a result of a minor or blunt trauma with no break in the skin. It can be transmitted when the bacteria spreads directly from a punctured internal organ, most usually the colon, rectum, or anus, or a sex organ. In addition, there's been some speculation on the use of NSAIDs during varicella infections, and people have been developing necrotizing fasciitis. It's important to note that necrotizing fasciitis is really rarely spread via direct person-to-person contact. When someone becomes infected, which again is most likely through an external break in the skin, the Streptococcus pyogenes bacteria spreads through the skin. And as it spreads, it produces endotoxins and exotoxins that restrict blood supply to the tissue. And then cells are digested by enzymes, resulting in a lesion consisting of pus, and the fluid remains of dead tissue, often resulting in systemic illness.
The signs and symptoms of necrotizing fasciitis are very obvious, but could sometimes be mistaken for the injury that allowed the bacteria in. The symptoms include fever, swelling, and more than normal pain for the size of injury or the type of injury. The early signs of this disease is hardening in the skin, soft tissue, swelling beyond affected skin, and the skin itself may appear shiny and tense. The signs include bleeding into the skin, necrosis, which is the skin dying, which may and will most likely turn the skin red, purple, or black, presence of gas in the tissue, lack of sensation in the affected area, and at last, progression into shock despite proper treatment.
As necrotizing fasciitis is most commonly transmitted through contact of the bacteria with external breaks in the skin, infection prevention and wound care are really important. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend avoiding spending time in hot tubs, swimming pools, or natural bodies of water when you have an open wound or skin infection. And while necrotizing fasciitis is rare, anyone is susceptible. Those with weakened immune systems are especially susceptible. That includes people with diabetes, kidney disease, cirrhosis of the liver, and cancer. So they, in particular, should be extra careful in avoiding infections when they have wounds. At present, there are no vaccines to prevent the infections. There are preventative antibiotics, but they're rarely prescribed.
The treatment of the disease is pretty straightforward and usually involves the removal of the infected skin via surgery. Other treatments or additional treatment would be antibiotics of a variety of types to ensure that the bacteria is fully subdued or eradicated. Though treatment is effective, even though people receive high-quality treatment, the risk of dying to this disease is somewhere between 25 and 30%.
This was our presentation on the bacterial disease, necrotizing fasciitis. Thanks for listening.